Assalamu alaikum, good afternoon, good morning, depending on when you're watching this video, and welcome to another Club 100 racing video. Now, while this may look like Club 100, this may look like, fairly standard milky cereal content, it is a little bit different because this is the endurance. So this was Rye House, so the same circuit that I released my most recent sprint race video at, and this race was essentially the day before that Rye House sprint race. I did the qualifying, and I ended up qualifying in, I think it was like 9th, I want to say. I was running in team with Yusuf Sorajano and Dan Seeger, the better driver over in the sprint championship. It was a lot of fun, and back in 2021, I actually did the endurance championship fully. I think we came third in the third class. That was my first experience in Club 100 racing before I moved over to the sprint championship. So it was nice to be back in the endurance and have some fun. And to be honest, recently I kind of was just looking through my camera and realized I had recorded this endurance race, and I had done the opening stint as well. So I thought it'd be a waste just to remove all the footage and delete it. So I thought, let's just commentate over it, put it up on YouTube. I'm not going to do, the whole serious thing with like the lap times every lap. I just thought I'd just talk over my opening couple of stints. So this is, I think, 50 minutes of straight karting action. I hope you guys do enjoy it, because I enjoyed racing in it. I think I'm going to enjoy covering this as well. And it's just going to be a bit more chill, not quite the same kind of vibes as I usually do for the sprints. That being said, it was a very, very fun opening couple of stints. I don't know, it just felt really nice. The temperature was a lot not hot compared to Sunday, so there was more grip, and we were running about a second a lap quicker than we did on the Sunday. But we are ready to go racing, and away we go. We're on the inside, and if you watch that sprint video from the Sunday's racing, you'll know how good the inside is. So we go up the inside, we try to follow the pack through, and now we're on the outside heading towards hairpin 1. So we're going to try to hang on the outside, although we end up with not many places to go. We got up the inside of Mr. Stephen Westwood through hairpin number 2, but we can't quite get the drive on corner exit to stay alongside. Now I think we're almost side by side coming down into pylon corner, but I think it's an okay start. Where are we running? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 9th to 7th in the opening lap, not bad. I tend to get decent opening laps at Club 100, but to be honest, this is where things started to go a little bit bad. I started just kind of dropping a little bit through the field, although we get a very good run through turn 1. And something you will see is my car was not one of the quickest. You can see the gap that we lost as we can sneak our way up the inside through hairpin 1. We can't get the drive though, and this is going to compromise us now into hairpin 2. I thought someone was going to be up our inside, but they weren't. Again, we look for the switchback, but you can see we just don't get the drive. And I do think I've had a little kind of fish through the footage, and I can just see, like, on certain places I come out of the corner quicker than drivers around me, and I just lose time down the straight. So I think there was a couple of tenths in the kart. Not a huge amount. This car was still absolutely drivable, and again, 2 tenths is not a huge amount, but when you're racing with people who are very close pace-wise to you, as I believe that's Mr. Dan Underhill, who goes up our inside through turn 1, muscles his car up our inside, and gains a position. We drop down into 8th place, and now I think almost had to go defensive into hairpin 2. But up ahead you can see Steph Theodorou, as Mr. JV likes to say, in his very nice orange and yellow helmet. And I'm not going to lie, I wanted to beat Steph. All that mattered to me starting on the grid was like, it's Steph, he's like my C2 championship rival, I know him well, I got to beat him. I can't finish this race behind Steph. That was the main thing in my head, because I just had to beat him. Sorry, not sorry. So that was my target. That was my main target. And then obviously I want to be able to just go as fast as I can and try to stick with some of the quicker guys, the likes of G3 Pro, Titan Motorsport. Harrison Kirkland was absolutely flying, and here you can see again, decent run. We give it a little tap to Mr. Underhill on the straight. What do we call it? Bump drafting, right? And we come into the pit. So the way that Club 100 works is you have a total of 5 mandatory pit stops to make over the course of the race. The pit window opens at about 2 minutes, and if you can get that early pit stop, hey, you come into the pits nice and early, pit lane is clear, you get that first pit stop out of the way, and it means that you get released into clean air. Now, you can see that we don't get a good pit stop because we pitted in front of that driver ahead, and we've come out behind. So that could be a mixture of having more fuel to go in the cart. It's also down to the fact that when I came into the pits, I hadn't already unscrewed the fuel cap. I didn't jump out of the cart as quickly as maybe the other driver did. I didn't get going as quick. Anyway, my next couple of pit stops were absolutely cracking though. So my next 2 pit stops were very, very good. I've looked at the times, and I think they were about the same kind of pace as the leader. So it was just that first pit stop where I kind of went into the pits. It was the first time I went into the pits at Rye House. I hadn't been into the pit lane since last year, so I kind of forgot what the pit lane felt like, how quick, because there's no pit lane speed limit at Rye House. So for those people who might maybe do Daytona Motorsport or whatever, and it's like walking pace, that's not the case here at CLUB100. You bomb it into the pit lane, you lock your tyres up, you stop at that fuel bowser. Okay, maybe not that hot, but you get the idea. And first time going in the pit lane, I was a bit like, oh, how quick can I go into the pit lane? Or like, where's the braking point in the pit lane? So just a number of things. Second time I was like, right, okay, I know what I'm doing. I remember what I used to do back in 2021, and it was a lot smoother. But now you can see other drivers making their pit stops, and we lost a lot of positions. We lost about 10 seconds in the pit lane due to just being slow. So I think we were about 10 seconds quicker for our next stop, and then potentially the stop after that as well. But not 100% sure. We start a new lap, and we've got someone in front of us, and I can see it's one of the G3 Pro drivers, so I'm thinking, oh, G3 Pro, quick kart. So G3, back when I was doing it in 2021, I think they finished second in the championship, and they were always at the sharp end. I think now they've got like an academy team or something in the Endurance Championship, so I'm not sure, because the main G3 Pro team is, I believe, Joe Holmes, Kurt Holmes, and Rob Newman, and that's neither of the 3 in front. So it's almost definitely one of the academy teams, but still at the time I was thinking, G3, I'm really happy that I'm sticking with them, and I really want to overtake them. I can also see Conman racing up in front, who have been around for quite a while, so that was another target for me as we go into turn 1, and I'm just thinking, right, how can I overtake them? We get a much better run through the opening corner, but not quite close enough to go up the inside into hairpin numero uno. They get a little bit sideways on corner apex, but they just kind of shoot away. Maybe they're just getting onto the power a bit earlier, but here you can see we gain time coming out of hairpin 2, and then we just lose like a little bit down the straight instead of gaining as we go up the inside into pylon, gain the position. But I think that's a good example of kind of the little bit that we were losing in terms of kart performance. Again, it's not a huge amount, but it is that tiny amount that, you know, maybe 1/10 on some of the longer straights at the circuit. But now we've got clean air, so it was head down and try to catch up to Conman Racing up ahead. I can also, I'm trying to remember when Steph made his pit stop, because eventually Steph made a pit stop and I kind of saw him in the distance, and I was like, right, there's my target. That's who I need to be hunting down. I think also at one point Will Stacey comes out of the pit lane, and he is alongside, oh, who was he alongside? Stephen Westwood, if I'm not mistaken. So that was another 2 drivers for me to kind of eye up to try to overtake. We take way too early of an apex into the final corner. I think that definitely would have compromised me just a smidgen, as once again we go into turn 1, and I'm just kind of looking at the common cart up ahead, and that's all I was thinking about at the time. Right, you know, just focus one cart at a time. Next up, the white and red suit. That's where I have to catch up, and as long as I'm catching up to him, I don't need to worry about anything else, and just put in the consistent, clean laps. And I think that's one of the main things with endurance racing, because it's a 2-hour race. There are 5 pit stops, but there's so many quick karts out there, and everyone finds a rhythm, right? It's not like sprint racing where it's, you know, ferocious from the very get-go. Everyone's scrapping it. It's a bit ferocious for maybe the first few laps, but again, not crazy. But then everyone gets a rhythm, and everyone starts pumping in those laps. And if you're a very, very quick driver versus like me, so like back when I did it in 2021, and you have people like Titan Motorsports, they'll just catch you those 2-3 3/10 a lap. It's not a huge amount, or in the case of Titan and stuff, they pull away from you by those few tenths a lap, and it's not a huge amount, but you can slowly start to see them pull away, and you're just searching for the time just to be able to try to match them. And that's what I was trying to do here. I was like, I don't need to catch up to the guys in front in like 2-3 laps. This isn't sprints where I've got a 6-lap race to win. It's a very long race. It's a team effort. If I can gain 2 seconds over 10-15 minutes, that's good, right? Those 2 seconds could be huge, because you can get 10 cars separated by a minute or so at the end of the race. So every second counts, every little mistake counts. So it's about being able to be consistently quick, rather than saying, oh look, I got this one insane lap where I gained half a second. Yeah, but the rest of the laps were not that good, or the same as the person you're trying to catch. If every single lap is 1/10 quicker consistently, that's much better than being able to have one lap that is half a second quicker, and the rest about the same, if that makes sense. But then again, I am kind of waffling. The other thing I was noticing was Conman, I think maybe they've pulled away a little bit at this point, but I knew there were other carts in front of them that I was catching up, and that's what I was focusing on. I think I could also see where Steph Theodorou was as well. I think that's his helmet kind of coming out of hairpin too. So that was my main mark. I was like, right, when I made my stop, I wasn't too far behind Steph, and I need to try to catch that up, because I was thinking, right, I've made the mistake. I'm the one who bottled up the pit stop and lost his time. I need to be able to get that time back. And that's not to say that I didn't think my teammates could do that, because I absolutely did, because I had some very quick teammates for this endurance race. But it was more of a pride thing, right? I can't let the team down, so whatever I've lost, I need to make back up. So that kind of positive attitude, we can say. But at this point, I was going to say I was well within a rhythm, and then you just saw me completely bottle up hairpin 1. So I thought I was in a rhythm, and then I made that mistake. But I think the reason why that mistake happened is during this endurance, I found this really good pace, and I knew, right, I've got sprints coming up the next day. And don't get me wrong, I was treating this endurance fully seriously. I was racing for the Dr. Vapes team, for Mo and Mortaza Hassan's team, along with Yusuf Surajano as well. But my focus was for sprints, right? I want to do a good job here for the endurance, but I want to be in the best position possible for sprints. So I was trying to push the limits every single lap, thinking, right, I'm comfortable now. Can I go that little bit later on the brakes? And that's why I think I made that mistake in hairpin 1 on the previous lap. Just trying to push my limits a little bit too far on that particular occasion. But then I know, right, I've made that mistake. I can't push beyond this point. So that's as far as I can go. And then don't make that mistake again. Or maybe do another 20 laps and then think, maybe I've gained a bit more confidence on the brakes. Maybe I can have another go at trying to break that lane. By the way, we have now caught up to this trio of carts up in front as we head through turn 1. Conman is going to go up the inside of, I believe that's Nathan Maximin's teammate, and we're just sitting behind. We get a decent run coming through the first complex of corners, so we're just going to slide up the inside. We're already alongside at the braking zone, so we don't have to brake ridiculously late. We can just brake at a normal kind of point, and then just release off the brakes a bit earlier so that the car just kind of glides up the inside, and we pull off a relatively good move. And then we go into pylon, and we're catching up to, let's just call him Josh. I'll let you guys figure out why we're calling him Josh. By the way, we're catching up to Josh. We get a very good run through the final corner, but I think I just had to lift ever so slightly. Someone's coming out of the pit lane, and again, it's just that little bit of time we're losing down the straight. We couldn't stay fully alongside, but we can slide our cut up the inside through turn 1. A very long right-hander, and if you don't hold it tight all the way, it's very easy for someone, like me in this case, just to be able to get the cart up the inside and almost have a block pass of sorts. But I can see that I've caught up to Conman, and that was quite good for me. And I think genuinely one of the strongest parts of my driving, and I've noticed this particularly when I've done the likes of the UKC and indeed in these endurance races, I've been able to get through traffic a lot quicker than others. And when I'm not talking about overtaking people in like sprints. In sprints, everyone's so close. I used to, probably still do, struggle to get through the field. However, when it's against people who are like 4/10 a lap slower. So not when you're like a 1/10 or 2/10 a lap quicker. I think there I struggle. But when I'm, 4 or so tenths quicker than people or more, I think I'm able to judge what other drivers are going to do and take advantage of that and get through traffic better than other drivers can. I think that is something that I have been quite good at least during the UKC and in the endurance rounds a couple of years ago and here at Rye House. So I think I was able to use that rather well. We're now behind Mr. Steve Lindley, who, for those people who don't know, used to be my teammate back in 2021 along with Mr. Matthew Horgan after Michael Grattan just bailed on us after the first round. We got up the inside of Steve Lindley, don't get a good run, and Steve gets past me, and I spoke to him after the race. He was, I knew at the time, he was very happy to get the switch back on me. I was just thinking, oh no. Obviously, I really wanted to overtake Steve, as he is my former teammate. I was just thinking, I can't believe I've just messed that up. And now I'm looking at Conman thinking, I was so close to them. I'd caught them up over the last 6-7 minutes, and now I've got to do all of that work again. And again, that's endurance, right? You make that one mistake. I go for this move, and Steve, it doesn't work. I've lost like 1-2 seconds. We find a way to slide up the inside through turn 1. It's such a nice overtaking spot. And now we're through. And now we can try to hunt down Common Racing once again. But again, this is how endurance racing works. If you make that mistake, that one mistake that we made when overtaking Steve Lindley, that undid all of the good work that I had done over the last 5-6 laps to catch up to Conman Racing. And it's why you can't make those mistakes. You have to be consistent and you have to be quick. And those mistakes just are not acceptable, right? And those are the kind of mistakes that the top teams won't make, right? They'll do loads and loads of rounds over the year and won't even make like one of those mistakes over the course of a 2-hour race. And that's the target. If you want to be the very best, that's the level you kind of have to get to. As for some reason on my screen the GoPro's gone a little bit weird. I don't think that's the case for you guys on YouTube, so it'll just sound like I'm making stuff up. But we make our way to Pylon, and I can still see, right, I'm reeling in Conman Racing. Not by a huge amount, but by enough. And I know, right, just give it time, and I will catch up to them, and I will be able to make an overtake, but I can't be impatient, otherwise I will make a mistake, and then it's going to take even longer to catch them up. And once you make that first mistake, that's when you then start over-pushing, over-driving, and you make more and more mistakes. I know I've got decent pace, I just have to consistently put in those laps, every single lap, and not do what I just did there through hairpin 1, where I think I outbraked myself a bit, missed the apex, and my minimum corner speed was absolutely horrible as well. I don't quite know what is going wrong with this camera footage for me. Again, I hope it's fine on the YouTube channel, as that time around going through Pylon, I took a little bit more curb than I otherwise would have, and I think taking more curb through Pylon does unsettle the cart, and that's something I found in the sprints as well. So if you are going to be doing a CLUB100 round at Rye House, I'd advise you to stay off that curb. I don't think it particularly helps, but we are closing in again. We're a couple of kart lengths behind the Conman Racing squad, and then there's a big group of karts up ahead, and I think that has the likes of Will Stacey, Steph Theodore right at the front of it. Or sorry, Steph is all the way at the front, and then I think Will Stacey and Stephen Westwood are a little bit further down, trying to catch up to Steph through that group of karts, and then myself and Conman Racing are catching up to that whole group. So I knew things were looking okay because I could see those guys and I knew I was catching. I was like, right, that's my target. That's what I need to be doing. I'm doing exactly what the team effectively needs of me at this point. I think after my first pit stop, we all have radios. My radio stopped working after the first pit stop, which was, useful. We were having some issues kind of pairing it up. Big shout out to Douglas Smith, actually. He was there on the Saturday and helped me and the team out massively, giving me that info during this opening stint or so. Actually, it was just through it was through qualifying and the opening few laps, because then the radio just didn't work. And it also meant I went too far into my stint compared to when I should have pitted, which was, a little bit unfortunate, but is what it is. But yeah, the radios are useful. They were working at Teesside for the 24 hours, BUKC 24 hours, and then yeah, I just couldn't get them to pair for some reason. Again, I'm missing the apex. What is wrong with me? Again, just getting too greedy, braking too late, and we lose that little bit of time on corner exit. Much better run though through hairpin 2, and we can see that group starting to close in. I would just say again, you know, I'm including the entire endurance race just because it was a fun endurance, and I thought I'm not going to edit it down. I'm just going to, you know, include the all of the karting footage, get the whole atmosphere. I'll be honest, I was just too lazy to do it. I was thinking I'll put all the lap times in, I can cut it down, but I just thought, nah, I do all of that for the sprints. I'll just keep it nice and simple for the endurance. And then we got sprint 60. What is wrong with me? Again, just braking too late. I had to kind of come off the brakes because either I was losing control of the kart or I thought I was going to go into the back of the common, so I just released off the brakes. And again, look at how much time we've lost. No, and what? It's almost a second. It's just such a dumb mistake by me. And that's the second time I've done it. And I know I do it again at least once because I remember myself doing it later on in the Enduro. It's these mistakes. Pushing too hard, thinking like, I'm catching. Come on, I need to do this quickly. It's not a sprint. I don't need to make the move instantly. Be patient. An opportunity will, you know, present itself. So yeah, I think not having been in the Enduro a while, maybe trying to overdrive the kart a little bit coming into play, but I knew that the pace was here, so you know, at this point maybe I would have found a way through on Condon by now and be starting to close in onto the group ahead, or at the very least I'd be on their tail. And you can see that I am catching, but it's taking me 2-3 laps to be able to undo a silly mistake that I made, you know, those couple of laps ago. Turn 1 though, we were getting really well, which is why for the sprints I was so surprised in my first heat that I was completely bottling turn 1, because the track conditions felt just so different. It was ridiculous. There was so much more understeer. It was so much harder to get the front end hooked up through turn 1. So in a way it was almost like doing this Enduro had a detriment to my sprint's performance in the first heat, possibly. After that, I think once I figured out what adjustments I had to make, then having the Enduro practice really helped me out massively in terms of where I could overtake, little things I could do with my driving style, slight adjustments like when I want to take an apex, etc. We have closed in onto Conman, and we're going to slide the kart up the inside. We get on the power as early as possible, and I think we pull off the move without them fighting back at all. So we go through hairpin number 2, and we're catching up to a couple more cuts. And then is that Mr. Will Stacey? I think that is Stephen Westwood ahead of this duo of cuts, and Will Stacey in the next trio of cuts that's just kind of out of our view. Will Stacey, another former teammate of mine for the BUKC 24 Hours a couple of years back, and on my BPEC team. Well, I say my BPEC team, on Ocean Bait's BPEC team, with the likes of myself and Kieran Harrison, and we're going to be doing the British 24 Hours in a month time as well, which should be absolutely brilliant fun. But we get a good run then coming out of hairpin 1, and well, of course we're going to go up the inside into hairpin 2 on the brakes nice and late so that we can get our kart fully alongside by the apex. We get left room and job done, upper position, and now it's just head back down, head back in the game, keep on pushing. And it's one of the reasons why I do really enjoy the endurance. I'm one of those people that's very indecisive. I don't know if I prefer the enduro more than the sprints. I know I prefer the enduro because it's more value for money. You get more karting time, but you don't get that raw racing in the sprints. But then again, I do genuinely love having these long stints where I can just get into a rhythm. It's so nice once you get into a rhythm and you just put in, you know, lap after lap after lap after lap. And I know this is going to sound very non-racing driver-esque, but I also really like it when you overtake someone and they don't try to battle you. It's really nice just being able to overtake someone and be like, okay, right, now I can keep on pushing and catching up to the next person. Whereas in the sprints, it's like, you try to overtake them, they defend. Obviously, because it's racing, or they go for a switchback and they fight back into the next corner. It's just like, just let me go, I want to catch the next people up the road. So, yeah, I do very much like the endurance for for that reason. I don't know if I prefer it to sprints. I don't think I do, because if I did prefer endurance to sprints, I'd probably be back in the endurance championship. I'm going to see how sprint 60 is. I've booked myself in for the SP60 this weekend actually at Clay Pigeon, so I'm going to be doing the SP60 alongside the sprints as we go up the inside into Pylon. Job done, and you can see at the very front of this train of carts is Steph Theodoro, and then Will Stacey and Stephen Westwood. So that whole trio of carts is a trio that I had wanted to catch up for a very long time, and now I'm catching. I can see them; they're inside. So this is, what are we? We're 25 minutes into the race. This is about 20 minutes of hard work, or maybe about 16 minutes after, you know, we had that bad pit stop. 16 minutes of hard work starting to come into effect. 16 minutes of driving to be able to catch the 5 or so seconds that we've lost, which isn't bad, right? 5 seconds over 16 laps, that's 5 seconds over 16 minutes, so 5 seconds over about 20 laps, something like that. We're talking about 4/10 a lap. That is a really good amount, and that's how much we've gained after losing, well, it was about 10 seconds. So yeah, we've gained 10 seconds over 25 laps. Yeah, so it's about 4/10 a lap. That's actually a really impressive amount. I'm chuffed with that. And that's, you know, putting in quick laps, and when you catch up to back markers, being able to get past them quickly. You sit behind a back marker for a lap, that's, you know, you've lost 4/10, maybe more, depending on what kind of back marker it is. You get involved in a battle, and you drop a load of time. And even now, with this group of 4 cars, and all 4 drivers are quick drivers, we're catching. And I don't think they're working together. That being said, is that Steph going up the inside of Stephen Westwood? I think it is, you know. So Stephen Westwood has the red and white helmet. Steph Theodoro has like the red, yellow and orangey helmet. But again, I'm just kind of enjoying watching all of this unfold in front of me. I'm like, right, I'm going to get my head down, try to catch up to these guys, have a blast, have a little battle. I'm not thinking, I just want to get past them. I don't want to have a battle. It's one of the weird things. I don't know if it's the same for anyone else who does CLUB100 or any form of karting racing, but I go 2 rounds thinking, oh, you know what, let's have a really fun battle as Steph goes into the pit lane. But sometimes before the race I think, yeah, it'll be nice, have a fun battle with some other drivers. And then when I'm in the car, I'm just like, please don't battle me. I just want to get my head down and put in quick laps. It's kind of weird. I enjoy the battles, but unless I'm battling for the lead, I don't fully enjoy them, because I'm just thinking I want to catch up to the leaders. That thought is in my head. Unless like I'm having a really bad day and I know I'm not going to go any further up the field, then I get to enjoy the battle. Otherwise, I'm always thinking I can hunt down the people further up the road. That's always in my mind to some degree. But we're still catching up to this trio, and I was thinking, right, maybe when I make my next pit stop, I'll make the pit stop before I get involved in this battle, so I don't lose any time, and I can, you know, do an undercut of sorts and try to jump them in the pit lane rather than losing time trying to overtake them on circuit. But at the same time, I'm also thinking I really want to overtake them on track, particularly Will Stacey and Steph, but Steph's pitted at this point. So I did want to overtake Will on circuit. That was playing in my mind. I can't remember if I did it. I hope I did. Then I'm going to clip this and send it to Will and tell him that I'm the better driver. As another driver jumps into the pit lane. So again, I'm like, right, let's try to catch up. And I think maybe I'm gaining on Will and Stephen Westwood. But if I am, it's not by a lot. I think the gap stayed about the same. So I'm just trying to catch up so that I can stick with them, work with them even. Ugh, shudders. Imagine working with any other drivers. I really close in on the guy in front through the braking zone. I was thinking about going up the inside, but we are closing in, so up the inside into the second hairpin. He also points us through. That's another reason why I like the endurance. Drivers let you pass. I love it when drivers let me pass, because it means I don't need to race. I hate racing. That's why I like to go racing. You see the irony in that, don't you? There's a weird thing about racing drivers. You're apparently racing drivers, but you like it when people let you pass and you don't have to race them. Like, genuinely, I am curious if other drivers find themselves with, like, the same kind of thought as me. where you just don't want to race. You just want to get your head down, put in these laps. There's something, I don't know, there's something really satisfying to me about having a stint where you're just working to catch up to one driver or a couple of drivers, and, you know, just putting in over a stint, gaining 1 or 2 seconds. There is something really special about that. Because I know when I do my commentary, I absolutely hate endurance races because they're so boring. And you can see, watch this pit entry. This is so much quicker into the pit lane than it was last time. I should get like a side-by-side up of how to pit in CLUB100 versus how not to pit. We jump out of the car. The fuel cap is off, and I think this was about 26 or so minutes into the race. We jump into the car, and as soon as the engine's on, we're on the throttle. We're tying on the fuel cap as we're exiting the pit lane as well. And look at that. Look at that. We're right behind Steph. So we've lost no time in the pits compared to Steph. So practically an identical pit stop to Steph. I mean, I don't know if he was slower than me on his out lap compared to my in lap, but overall we haven't lost any time to the driver, the team that we were battling with. And I've got a target now, so I've got someone that I can try to hunt, someone that I can try to overtake as well. I guess that means I didn't overtake Will Stacey out on circuit, unless he's going to come out of the pits around me. We'll see it as well, because I think at some point Stephen Westwood comes out of the pit lane. And I do remember having a battle. Actually, it was Matthew Cochran who came out of the pit lane, so I remember having a battle with Matthew at some point. But at this point, I'm just thinking, right, I need to get through, as we come out way too wide through turn 1, so we actually end up losing a bit of time. At this point, I'm just thinking, right, I want to get past Steph. That's literally all that's in my head, is I want to overtake Steph on circuit, and I want to pull away and have that mental advantage for the sprint round on Sunday. You know, racing drivers thinking about the future, tactics. Ugh, disgusting. Either way, we get a pretty good run out of this final corner, or at least it looks like we should do. Not quite gaining a huge amount of time on the straights. I could have tucked in a bit better for the slipstream. I think I pulled out of that a bit too early. But again, I felt really quick through turn 1. Maybe it was the car, maybe it was me, but I did feel like I was gaining so much time versus everyone else's. We go up the inside, late move, and then I don't know why I went so wide, and then we get overtaken on the exit. That was the guy who pitted 1 lap before us, so yeah. Maybe, did I get a push from behind? I don't think so. I think I just messed up my overtaking into that hairpin. Again, another really useful reason to have done the endurance. I don't make that mistake in the sprints, as someone is precariously spun heading into the final corner. We get a good run. We try to go over to the inside, but the inside gets covered off very efficiently by Mr. Red Suit, and now we're just sitting behind. I wanted to go up the inside, but he holds it tight all the way through the corner. And I'm not going to lie, I was a bit frustrated, because I was like, I want to overtake Steph, and now I'm behind this person, and I was kind of worried that they wouldn't catch up to Steph, because I forgot that they were one of the drivers in that, you know, 4-car group from earlier. 4-car group? Yeah, 4-car group. So, to be honest, we can just stick behind, try to catch up to Steph together. They're actually really hot into pylon. Is that going to cost them on exit? No, they took pylon really well that time round. And the final corner, to be honest, I think that final corner is a place where I was definitely losing time to the quick guys on sprints day. Again, turn 1, I feel a lot quicker. They take it so much tighter than me, and I feel like letting it go a little bit wide midway through turn 1 is definitely better. Oh, that was really clean by Mr. Red Suit. Did you see how he braked and he got his car into that little opening on corner exit, on corner entry? And it just allowed him to open up his steering. So that was really impressive. I'm gonna like clip that and just like watch it a million times as I go to sleep. That was beautiful. Mr. Red Suit, I don't know who that is, but whoever they are a pretty damn quick driver. But we are quicker. I don't know. So through turn 1 we go. I think through turn 1 I'm quicker than them. We'll see whether I can keep on doing that once we get past Steph. Spoilers, I do overtake Steph. Again, taking a bit too much curb. It costs them, but we've kind of got nowhere to go, so we just have to sit behind, and I really want to overtake him. It's just like racing driver instinct. I don't want anyone in front of me. I want to overtake everyone. you know, work together, sure. I'll work together once I'm in front. They got a bit hot into pylon, so we just look for the exit, really. All that time, we kept the cart so much more to the left, and now they're going defensive, and I'm like, I'll push them along, but I don't have the speed to be able to push them on the straight. I'm a bit too far back. Now we're going through turn 1, and this is the guy who pitted and pointed me through a couple of laps ago, and I'm going to go up his inside into hairpin 1. Job done. And is that Will Stacey up in front? I think that's Will Stacey. I think he's pitted. Ooh, we'll see. We'll find out in a bit. We'll find out in a bit. But either way, we're back past Mr. Red Suit, which made me very, very, very happy. Very a bit defensive into pylon, so I think Mr. Red Suit might have been on our outside through the corner as... Oh, it's Mr. Harrison Kirkham. Oh, yeah, that reminds me. Harrison wasn't very happy at the time. He was like, think, because I was fighting with him. Yeah, that does remind me. Harrison was insanely rapid, both on Saturday and Sunday. I will say as well, in my defense, as Mr. Red Suit overtakes me once again, Harrison did have a rocket ship. He was incredibly quick, was Harrison, but he did have a rocket for this endurance. He absolutely checked out. He put it on pole by a considerable margin, and he just left everyone. He was literally Max Verstappen-esque, how quick Harrison was. So a very quick driver in a quick cut as we got up the inside of Mr. Red Suit. Haha! Take that, Mr. Red Suit. Mr. Josh goes into the pit lane. Ooh, bit of contact as... Or was that me trying to avoid the stricken cone? Because I would have seen that quite late. Either way, we're back in front. I can get my head down and try to catch up to the guys up ahead, which is Steph Theodorou and Will Stacey. I'm 99% certain that's Will Stacey. We'll find out in a bit whether that is well and truly him, as Harrison Kirkham effectively goes up his inside into hairpin number 1. But at this point, it's going to be another... Let's be real. It's going to be 5 or so laps for me to catch up with him, right? Because I probably have 1 or 2 tenths a lap as an advantage, and they're about 1 or so seconds up the road. But this is where, like, consistency comes in. If they make one mistake, if they drop like 3-4 tenths on one lap, instead of gaining 2 tenths, I'm going to gain over half a second. As long as I stay consistent. So that's what's important. Consistently putting in these times. And I've said it before. I'll keep saying it. Oh, that's not Will Stacey. It's Dan Underhill. Yes. So Dan, I believe, overtook me towards the early part of the first stint. We've kind of worked our way up to catching up to him. So another one of the G3 drivers. I don't know if he's in the same team as Rob Newman and Joe Holmes, or if he's the teammate with that other G3 driver that we were trying to battle with early. Wait, is that Dan Underhill? No, it just has, yeah, it's the same G3 driver as before. So that time that we lost in the pit lane, we've caught back up. They make a mistake. We're going to look to the inside. But again, you can see that kart, you know, we're just losing those 1-2 tenths down the straight, and that's why we can't get alongside before turn 1. We do, though, get a very nice run through turn 1, up the inside, job done. Next up, Steph Theodorou, C2 Championship leader. I think he was coming into this round, or second place in the C2 Championship. Not anymore, because we're back in second place. Keck. But no, long season ahead for sprints, and it's going to be a very, very hard-fought battle. I'm going to try to do my absolute best to continue to take points out of both Harrison Kirkham and Steph. And I think it is very possible to win the championship. But we need to get our shit together. I think, weirdly, sorry to talk about sprints in the middle of this endurance round, but I will. I'll hold that thought for a second because we get a very good run through turn 1. Not quite close enough to go up the inside into hairpin 1. So we have to slot in behind for now. But going back to championship things, I think part of me is hoping for wet races. Because as insanely quick as Harrison is, I don't think he's had much experience racing in the wet. And I reckon I have more of a chance of beating him and other C2s beating him if it's raining. Because I think if it's dry, Harrison is C1 standard right up at the sharp end with loads of others. You know, the likes of Mike Hoppin, Dante, Rob Newman even. But I think if it's wet, I think Harrison likely struggles in the wet. But after Clay, I feel confident in the wet, essentially. So I reckon in the wet, I might be able to have the upper edge. So part of me wants it to be wet for that reason, but also I don't want it to be wet because I hate the wet, and I want it to be dry so I can fight for an overall win, like we did at Rye House. Again, if you've not seen my Rye House sprints video, watch it, because the A final is absolutely mega, and I think if there were 5 more laps in that race, I might have actually won the A final outright. We had such good pace. It's just a shame that our opening 3 laps weren't the greatest, and we had to kind of climb up the field from about 9th place. But yeah, the pace was there, and I'm very excited for the rest of the season. We are still behind Mr. Theodoru, and trying to close in. We're 40 minutes in, so this was around the point that I was supposed to be pitting to hand over to Dan Seeger to do the second set of stints. But we are right behind Steph, going in to pylon. We go up the inside, get the job done, let the cart out wide, open up the steering as much as possible. We gain a position which was satisfying, to say the least. Mental advantage asserted, if you can say that. Either way, we've got Harrison in front, and I was like, oh look, I'm catching up to Harrison. This is cool. And then I realised he's got an issue, and Harrison actually had his chain came off. Oh, his chain came off, or carb came loose. Something or other happened. It cost him like a minute. Harrison was a lap ahead of me at this point. After 40 minutes, Harrison had lapped me. That is how fast Harrison Kirkham was. Actually, I don't know if he had a pit stop still to do. I think he might have. I can't remember. I think he was genuinely a lap ahead of me after 40 laps. So, after 40 minutes. So, yeah, 60 laps or so. He gained 40 seconds over me. He was absolutely rapid, was Harrison Kirkham. But that issue for Harrison essentially meant that they lost a whole bunch of time. And after we had done the same amount of pit stops, they were actually, I think they were about 15 seconds behind us going into the final stint, going into like the final half an hour. And they got that gap down to about 10 seconds. But the other Yusuf in the team, and our team captain for the day, managed to bring it home, and we were able to win in the C3 category. To be fair, neither us nor Harrison, well, definitely us, we shouldn't have been in C3. And to be honest, I don't think Harrison Kirkham and the JHA Racing squad, both all of Harrison Kirkham, Adam Sheagold, and Jason Kirkham are all very, very quick, particularly Harrison Kirkham. So I think both of our teams should have been in C2. Well, we absolutely should have been in C2, and I think they would have won in the C2 class if they didn't have their issue. We had another slow stop, and if we didn't have our 2 slow stops, we would have been second or first in this. Or if we include the issues that Harrison Kirkham's team had, we would have been second or first in the C2 class if it wasn't for our 2 slow pit stops. Because we did have 1 slow pit stop where we dropped about 10-15 seconds. So 15 seconds there, along with like the 5 to 10 seconds I lost in my opening pit stop, and I think that would have been the 20 seconds needed to take us into the top 3. So it was that close, and yeah, we did have very good pace here at Rye House, which I'll take, all things considered. And we saw the pace that we had come into fruition on Sunday sprints, particularly again in that A final. But this is a point where you're in an endurance, there's not really much around, and when the radio isn't working, you don't really have much information on who you're trying to hunt and what you're trying to do. And I think up ahead is that Common Racing again? It might be Common Racing. And I think Matthew Cochran, I'm just trying to see if I can spot his red helmet in the distance. I think, you know what, I think that is Matthew Cochran. So at this point I saw Matthew, and I know Matthew's a quick driver. I'm like, right, there's my next target. Every time I can kind of see a driver that I recognise, I'm like, right, I know how quick this driver is. I want to be able to catch them, right? I don't really set like how much I want to catch them. I don't really know, right, I want to catch them by this much. I just know I want to catch them, and I want it to be a visible amount that I am catching them by. And I could see that I was catching into that group of carts up ahead, and more specifically the cart right in front of me, and this time it might actually be Dan Underhill. We'll see once we get a bit closer what it says on the back of their suit. Bernie. teammates with Tim Hill in one of the teams. Either way, he doesn't race in sprint, so I don't know him. I haven't raced with him before. He might be one of the heavyweight sprint drivers. We send it up the inside, job done, and you can see even with that move, we are still catching up to Matthew and the group ahead. So again, it's just heads down. As soon as you overtake someone, heads down, keep on driving. I know in the essential 50 minutes that I did in the kart, I got 1 track limits, which was, I think, for that final corner that you just saw, and 1 contact warning. So I was quite happy with it, considering that the last time I did endurance at Rye, which was like my first round doing an endurance at CLUB100, I got a black flag within the first 5 minutes. Actually, I think I got 2 black flags. I got 2 black flags within the opening 10 minutes. It was so stupid. And we still came 3rd in the clubman class. It was, yeah, we should have won that round. We definitely should have won that round. That season, I got 2 black flags at Rye, cost us a win, we came 3rd. I think Bayford Meadows, Matt Horgan got a black flag, it cost us a win, we came 2nd. Without those 2, we might have done a little bit better in the championship. Not a huge amount better, because we had 1 really bad round at, I think it was Lid, where it was wet. It was the 1 round where I wasn't there, and apparently it absolutely chucked it down. And we didn't have a good result from what I was told, but I can't remember where we finished. But yeah, we're slowly closing in. We catch up into pylon, decisive up the inside, cleanly done. And again, heads down. We keep on trying to climb our way up through the field, and I can see, right? I can visibly see that I'm catching up to the drivers that I want to be catching. Both of the carts up ahead. I think one of them might be Conman Racing. So we get to overtake Conman once more. I don't know why I always remember Conman Racing. They're like always the team that I just remember as like the team that I was always just like a little bit quicker. So they always felt like a good benchmark in the past to be like, right, I'm catching up to them. And also they have like matching suits. So it's like, you know when you're catching up to Conman Racing. And they've been around in CLUB100 for, well, at least since 2021 and probably for a few years before that as well. But we continue to catch as we make our way into the final corner. And I had pretty good pace, pretty consistent pace as well. I think my fastest time was like a 41.6. I did a 41.5 in qualifying, 41.4. Dan Seeger after me, he also did a personal best of a 41.6, but his fastest lap was like 100th quicker than mine because, you know, Dan Seeger is just a better driver than me. One day, and I need to have a proper fight with Dan Seeger out on circuit. And actually, that'd be really fun for the A final win at some point. Me and Dan for the race win. It's going to be epic. Watch this space. Through the final corner we go. Again, we don't quite get a good run, and I think, as I said in my sprints video, going into that final corner, just not quite aggressive enough through the left and a bit hesitant. I couldn't, you know, get the kart slowed down and turned in the right way. We are closing into common. Do we go up the inside? Of course we go up the inside. Yes, please. Job done. Upper position. And now next up is Mr. Matthew Cockram. And I know that I was catching up. So I was like, right, it's a case of when I catch up, not if. And then how do I make the overtake? Can I actually catch up relatively soon? I think by the end of the next lap, possibly. He has a bit of a moment into the final corner. That allows us to get a pretty good run. So we cross the line once more. But I kind of realised, and this was the case for a lot of people, I gained so much time through turn. I mean, just look at that. Look how much time we just gained through the opening corner. Like, we could see all of Matthew's helmet on corner exit, whereas going in, we could, well, see essentially that much of the back of his race suit. So, yeah. Turn 1 was really, really good for us. Matthew, though, was incredibly good on the brakes into hairpin 1. Because every time I thought I got a run, I was like, oh, I got the inside into hairpin 1. I just couldn't brake late enough. So that is something that I need to practice, just how to be that confident on the brakes, because Matthew had that down to a T on Saturday. So again, into turn 1 we go. And you can just see how much time we're gaining all through the corner on exit. We have a little lift, and this is where I'm thinking, okay, up the inside we go. I'm like, bloody hell, that's so late on the brakes. And I was kind of thinking that I would make the move, and because Matthew was so late on the brakes, I was like, right, I can't go up the inside, I just have to back out this move, and it costed me time. And again, you can see how much time I've lost, right? Half a second, because I thought I could go for a move, I couldn't. And again, mistakes being made in an endurance race that I just should not be making. And if you count all the mistakes that I've made, if you exclude the pit stop, I probably cost the team about 2 to 3 seconds, which isn't a huge amount, but it adds up. And it's just, you know, when you add these little things one on top of another, again, I get a very good run through turn 1, but that is pretty much everything. My GoPro died pretty much right after this. So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you did enjoy this video. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one for Clay Pigeon.